Good evening, councillors. Welcome to the 28th of February 2022 Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, meeting opening. 1.1, attendance. Are there any apologies, Mr Benny?
Yes, Mayor. A single apology this evening from Councillor Bob Milkovich.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Item 1.2, acknowledgement of traditional owners of the land. Council acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, while also recognising their deep and continuing connections to climate, culture and country. We also pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their elders and acknowledge their journey. Item 1.3, offering of prayer. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer this evening will be offered by Imam Mohammed Sezgin from the Turkish Islamic Cultural Centre and Mosque of Keysborough, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network, which Councillor O'Reilly will read. Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. O Allah, unite our hearts and set aright our mutual affairs. Guide us in the path of peace. Liberate us from darkness by your light. Save us from enormities, whether open or hidden. Bless us in our ears, eyes, hearts, spouses and children. Turn to us. Truly you are oft returning, most merciful. Make us grateful for your bounty and full of praise for it, so that we may continue to receive it and complete your blessings upon us. O Allah, I beg of you pardon and safety. O Allah, I beg of you useful knowledge and acceptable deeds. O Allah, impart to our earth its blessings, its embellishment and its repose. O Allah, make this facility that we are in beneficial to our country, nation and its employees. Protect our country from all kind of disasters and calamities. Bestow remedy upon our sick and help those who are in debt to fulfil their debts. O most beneficent one. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Before I move on to the next item, I'd just like to read out a statement. In relation to the current COVID situation, Council must ensure that we continue to provide a safe workplace for councillors, staff and any person who enters its facilities, and we continue to assess the risk associated with opening up facilities as we progress through the early part of 2022. With the easing of most COVID restrictions, I can advise that we will reopen council meetings to the public in March. Anyone attending the council meeting will need to be double dose vaccinated or be able to show they have acceptable certification that they are an expected person. This means that you will need to show your vaccination certification or exemption status through the Service Victoria app on your phone, or alternatively bring the printed version along to gain entry into the council meeting. Gallery seating will also be restricted and subject to density limits, but we will also still be streaming the meetings on the big screen in Harmony Square. I urge you to continue to check Council's website prior to attending any council meeting, because it is always possible that COVID situations may change quite quickly. But for now, we are all very much looking forward to seeing some faces in the gallery at the council meeting on Tuesday, 15th of March. Thank you. I'll move on back to the agenda. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting of council held on the 14th of February 2022.
To move it.
Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr Benny.
None received, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Benny. 2. Officers' reports, Part 1, 2.1, documents for sealing, 2.1.1, documents for sealing.
Happy to move it.
Moved by
Councillor
Councillor Tan, second by Councillor Trong. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 2.2, documents for tabling. 2.2.1, documents for tabling. Moved by Councillor Deputy Mayor Foster, second by Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? There is no opposition. I declare the motion carried. 2.2.2, petitions and joint letters updated.
I move.
Moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Trong. Are there any questions? Councillor Garrard.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Councillor Garrard.
Sorry, Mayor, I don't have a question. I've got a comment, so I'll wait till you finish.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Are there any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Councillor Garrard.
Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge the petition update that was received from 70 proponents requesting the Greater Dandenong Council revise the concept design for the Children's Services, Public Playground and Cafe and Community Lounge in the Dandenong Community Hub.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item 2.3, statutory planning applications. 2.3.1, planning decisions issued by Planning Minister Delegate for January 2022.
I move.
Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Councillor Long. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 2.3.2, planning delegated decisions issued January 2022. Moved by Councillor Formoso, second by Deputy Mayor Foster. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 2.3.3, town planning application number 11 Shepworth Avenue, Noble Park, planning application number PLN21/0418.
Move, Councillor Dark.
Moved by Councillor Dark, second by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 3, question time public. Mr. Benny.
Mayor and councillors, the first question is from Louisa Willoughby of Springvale. Springvale and Dandenong libraries have been operating on reduced COVID hours for all of 2022. With schools now back and restrictions easing, what is the plan for returning to pre-COVID opening hours? When or under what conditions might we expect evening and full weekend hours to resume? Mr. Fiddler could respond.
Mr. Fiddler.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Louisa, for your question. With the easing of COVID-19 impacts on the library services, we are progressively increasing the evening hours from this week, from today, and we will be returning to full hours of operation from the 14th of March. The weekend hours are already back to pre-COVID opening times. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny.
Next question is from Nisarg Modi of Pakenham. Why do council think that widening Abbots Road in Dandy South was extremely urgent and they started work before Remington Drive Bridge finishes? 20,000 vehicles pass through that road each day, and it has put a burden on Greens Road, Thompsons Road and Princess Highway. Couldn't we wait until Remington Drive Bridge finishes? It's a huge loss to productivity and human hours. For the next 6 weeks, every individual using all 3 roads as mentioned above will lose valuable family time by at least 45 minutes. Mr. Kearsley.
Mr. Kearsley.
I'd like to thank Mr. Modi for the question, and this particular project has been one that the local businesses in Dandenong South and the surrounding area have been calling for a number of years now, probably in excess of 10 years, in terms of the duplication of Abbots Road in order to solve the congestion issues down there. So I'm sorry that the works on Abbots Road is creating inconvenience to you and other members of public for the short period of time. There are several aspects of the Abbots Road project, and Council has had very little choice as to the timing, and in some cases the order was critical. For example, Council needed to do our intersection with Taylors Road before the Department of Transport could go and do their work along Remington Drive. It should also be noted that the first element of our works, which required the road closure, is being undertaken by the gas transmission authorities, and our control over their timing is severely limited. Council has always remained proactive to avoid as much possible excessive impacts on motorists, implemented the most efficient traffic management measures available, and directed delivery of the projects within committed timeframes. When the Abbots Road project is complete, you will see the improved intersection arrangements, additional traffic lanes, improved public lighting, safe and convenient access to all road users, an upgraded stormwater system, and improved underground services. We understand the difficulties of road users during this short period for the closure and appreciate your patience and understanding of Council's actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Mr. Benny.
The next question is from Valerie Ruperti of Dandenong North. Since it was announced in 2020, there has been news about the planned $600 million redevelopment of Foster Street. It was announced that there was to be community consultation starting in 2021, and construction was supposed to start in 2023. There has been no public news since. What is happening with the project, and when is community consultation meant to start? Mr. Kearsley.
Mr. Kearsley.
I'd like to thank Ms. Ruperti for the question. What I can advise is that we understand that Development Victoria and Capital Alliance, in terms of the process that they are undertaking, in terms of planning for the revitalisation of sites 11 to 15, and the draft master plan community engagement is expected to occur in March, with public information outlining the engagement activities to be available shortly. I would just like to add a comment at the end that this is not a council project. It is actually undertaken by the state government in conjunction with Capital Alliance, and we are informed of the timing of the consultation by them. If we have any further updates, we can certainly let the public know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Mr. Benny.
The next question is from Mark Stone of Dandenong. I'm asking this question for my daughter, who is a ratepayer in Dandenong. She uses the Dandenong Showgrounds Park and crosses at Jones Road and Railway Parade intersection. It's very dangerous for pedestrians to cross into the park at Bennett Street, no lights to cross, and the path along Railway Parade stops onto grass at that intersection. She wants to use the park more, but it's very unsafe to get there. I suggest a separate bridge just to the west of the intersection to allow access for pedestrians and cyclists to access the park. It's urgent, so can we please hear from you soon and meet at that intersection to discuss the problem? Mr. Kearsley, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Kearsley.
I'd like to thank Mr. Stone again for the question. We are very much aware of the challenges for pedestrians and cyclists using this particular intersection of Railway Avenue, Jones Road and Bennett Street due to the narrow pedestrian spaces and the lack of footpath connections to the west along Railway Avenue. We've actually identified this intersection as part of the Jering Trail extension from Yarraman Station to the Dandenong CBD, and Council received a TAC grant in 2020 to undertake a functional design of this particular extension. The overall costs for this extension, including the intersection works, is over 10 million. The majority of the costs associated with those improvements to this particular intersection due to the complexities. The intersection is the highest priority stage for delivery of the trail extension, as other stages provide no significant network benefits without its completion. The intersection improvements involve realigning the intersection to provide more space for the path, improve pedestrian crossing facilities and provide a footpath connection to the west of the intersection. A raised crossing point has also been included on Bennett Street to assist access to Greaves Reserve. As the Jerring Trail is a state strategic cycling corridor, Council is advocating to the state and federal governments to provide funding for this project, and we have been doing so for the last couple of years. Council officers has also worked with the Department of Transport officers to support their internal state funding submissions for the delivery of this project. Unfortunately, we have not been successful in obtaining funding at this time, but we continue to advocate perhaps for some funds coming through the state budget in May, and even as a possible election commitment prior to November 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny?
This question is from Mark Osborne of Dandenong. It's been several years since a review of the Greater Dandenong Municipal Strategic Statement has been due, including the required community consultation. When is the community consultation on the Greater Dandenong Municipal Strategic Statement going to start? Mr. Bosman, isn't it? Mr. Bosman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Mark Osborne, I can advise that council officers had already done an internal review of the MSS in 2017 and were almost at the point of sending it on to the State Government Planning Department, otherwise known as DELP, who then advised that they wouldn't deal with it until after completion of the Planning Policy Framework translation being done by them. The new Planning Policy Framework was then introduced into the Victoria planning provisions by the state planning, the state planners through the Gazettal of Amendment VC 148 on the 31st of July 2018. A review of the Greater Dandenong Municipal Strategic Statement, the MSS that Mr. Osborne refers to, has been delayed by State Planning Department until after the introduction by them of the new planning policy framework to the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme. They are currently translating the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme Local Planning Policy Framework and Municipal Strategic Statement into the format of the new Planning Policy Framework and Municipal Planning Strategy. The policy translation, according to the State Planning Office, will be policy neutral. So all of this work is being undertaken at the moment by State Planning Policy or State Planning team before we can actually get to deal with the MSS. Once the Planning Policy Framework and the MPS are in the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme, an internal review will be done with public consultation occurring very shortly after that. However, the timing of the introduction and gazettal of the PPF and the MPS, these are so many abbreviations, but I've just referred to them, are out of the control of council. It will nonetheless, and that is council will nonetheless have it as a high priority for officers to proceed with the project and its public consultation once State Planning Department has completed the work that they are doing on the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny?
The next question is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. What is happening to Greater Dandenong's Nature Play program on Tuesdays at Alex Wilkie Reserve in 2022? It ran successfully in the previous 2 years, albeit punctuated by lockdowns, but there is no information on the website or otherwise regarding when it will restart in 2022. A restart was foreshadowed by council officers to the public in October 2021 when COVID restrictions would ease, but there has been no public communication since. Mr. Keasley.
Mr. Keasley?
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank Mr. Kerwin for the question. I can advise that the Nature Play program delivered at the Alex Wilkie Nature Reserve will be commencing in late March 2022. The program will be delivered much the same as in other years, with a weekly session on Tuesdays throughout spring, summer and autumn, and scaled back to fortnightly sessions throughout winter. The Parks team are working with the Children's Services team to finalise the upcoming program and begin communicating with previously interested residents and groups. There will also be further information updated on Council's website with some advertising to ensure the community know that the sessions are back on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny?
This question is also from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. Homelessness, to be more specific, sleeping rough, continues to be a serious problem in both Dandenong and Noble Park. The report refers to a functional zero model to address homelessness in Greater Dandenong. Broadly, what is that model And can the document describing the model please be added to the Greater Dandenong Council Homelessness, Social and Affordable Housing webpage, as it is not there at present? Mr Fiddler,
Mr Fiddler.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr Kerwin, for the question. The model is a collaboration between Council and Launch Housing to address rough sleeping homelessness in the municipality. The functional zero approach will enable hard-to-reach people who are sleeping rough to be linked with available housing and supports to secure and sustain their housing. Ways and other service providers are also supporting this initiative. The model will anticipates to provide long-term housing support for persons sleeping rough in Greater Dandenong, and it's been implemented successfully in other government areas, including the City of Melbourne, Frankston and Stonington. A working group was formed in January this year, and Council has commenced discussions with a range of stakeholders. This initiative is in its formative stage, with an operational rollout and a launch anticipated in July this year. Council's website will be updated re the model and engagement and other activities as they are confirmed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Mr Benny.
The final question this evening is from Louisa Willoughby of Springvale. It's a two-part question. The first part, what works are currently being undertaken in Spring Valley Reserve and when are they due for completion? And part two, about 5 years ago, the Council magazine said that a budget item had been approved for a Spring Valley Reserve master plan to be developed, fitting for such a large, valuable open space. Has this master plan been completed? And if so, can a copy be made available via the website? If not, why has it not? And when will it be completed and what consultation will take place and when? Mr Kearsley.
Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank the resident for the question. With regards to the first part, the works currently underway at Spring Valley Reserve are being undertaken as a direction from the EPA to improve the earthen cap over the old landfill that operated at this site many years ago. This means the importing of special clay to seal the surface, covering this over with imported sand material, and then topping this up with subsoil. The whole project is due to be completed by June 2022 and will incorporate replanting of grass and the reinstatement of paths and seating. With regards to the second part of the question, the master plan has not been completed and was put on hold when the extent of the works required by the EPA was understood. It is not planned to commence a master plan process until after the reinstatement works are complete and we have a final sign-off from the EPA of all of the required landfill works in that location. Also noting that starting later this financial year, there will be a separate drainage project undertaken to meet the EPA requirements, and this will result in some disturbance to the south end of that reserve. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley, and thank you, Mr Benny. Councillors, will move on to the next item. 4, Officers' Reports, Part 2, 4.1, Contracts, 4.1.1, Contract number 202162, Supply and Installation of Public Litter and Recycling Bin Surrounds. Moved by Councillor Formosa, second by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. (4.2) Policy and Strategy. 4.2.1 Councillor Media Policy Draft. Moved by Councillor Garrard. Second by Councillor Long. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition?
Mayor, Councillor Dark, I just wish to record an abstention.
Okay, Councillor Dark will abstain. Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried.
Mayor, could I make a comment?
Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge that this is the first councillor media policy, and it's good to see that the media policy is in line with community expectations.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item 4.3 Other. 4.3.1 Draft Minutes of Community Safety Advisory Committee meeting on the 10th of November 2021. Moved by Councillor Long.
Second, Councillor Dark.
Second by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.3.2 draft minutes of Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee meetings, 17th of June 2021, 19th of August 2021 and 20th of October 2021.
Move, Councillor Dark.
Moved by Councillor Dark, second by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I move the motion carried. 4.3.3 report on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings 17th and 24th of January and the 7th of February 2022. Moved by Deputy Mayor Foster, seconded by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.3.4 list of registered correspondence to the Mayor and councillors. Moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Trong. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 5, notice of motion. There are none. Item 6, reports from councillors, delegated members and councillor questions. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, over the last fortnight, I've attended a few events with several of my council colleagues. A couple of the events I attended is the Dandenong City Soccer Club match with Councillor Long and yourself, Mayor, which was actually held at the Dandenong City Club grounds as one of the first matches for the season. It was a very, very well attended event. I think there was almost nowhere to park when I got there just after the start of the match, so that's always good. I had the fortunate opportunity of being able to attend on Saturday night the Keysborough Cricket Club's fundraiser to raise money, vital money for the club, which after going through COVID over the last couple of years, they've suffered financially, as with a lot of our local clubs have. So it was good to actually get out once again with the mask rules being relaxed and get out and celebrate with local residents and the opportunity and the work that the local cricket club has been doing. I had a very good opportunity last night it was actually to attend the Dandenong City versus St Albans Saints match at the St Albans Club grounds out in Sunshine out west. I attended that with quite a large contingent from Dandenong, which is always good to see the facilities which another municipality has compared to what we provide in our municipality. And you become quite grateful for the facilities that we have on offer for our local sports community when you go and you see some of the ones that certainly are, I would say, probably in the vicinity of 30, 40 years old. So it's always good to get out and attend and see these local things and to also celebrate the infrastructure we have. I have one question this evening. The question I have is I've received some correspondence and I'd raised it previously with the intersection of Cochrane Avenue and Kingsclear Avenue there, just opposite Parkmore Shopping Centre. Now, there's been a lot of issues with traffic, particularly around school. The Chandler Park Primary School site is located on Cochrane Avenue, and there's been a lot of traffic during school time now that schools commence trying to get out. A lot of congestion and blocking of traffic on Kingsclear because the amount of traffic flowing down a suburban street after 2:30 in the afternoon, leading up to about 5 o'clock, has caused a lot of issues. I was wondering whether we could please have a look and see. I know it is very close to Cheltenham Road, so we may need to have a conversation with the Department of Transport, but whether we could please just have a look and see what options are available to be able to potentially increase or put some sort of traffic device in place to control traffic a bit better.
Mr. Kearsley.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we certainly can. We can certainly look at a number of options there, and I'll get the transport team. We can go and have a look and then address that with some further discussions with you in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Formoso.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got quite a few, so everybody get comfortable. I apologise. The first thing I'd like to mention is the incredible event that we had in Harmony Square on the 20th of February, which was the New Beginnings community welcome for our Afghan community. And it was a beautiful celebration. It was one of the first celebrations that I've been able to partake in as a new councillor.
We've lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Particularly since we haven't been able to have any events due to COVID, and what a fitting event to have. And I know for a fact that it was very successful. So I'd like to thank our community members that attended, and of course our councillors that also attended. The first issue I'd like to raise is as a PE teacher in this municipality, I'm constantly flabbergasted at how much little exercise our community does. So I make it my daily quest to ensure that our not only students but our entire community are active. And what I'd humbly request from you, Mayor, is a letter perhaps to encourage National Ride to School Day, which is happening on Friday, the 25th of March, to coincide with our Make Your Move strategy. But also, being March, it's a really good opportunity for students to, if they don't have a bike, obviously to walk to school and really try and change this statistic that we have within our community. So it would be really great if you could do that, please, Mayor.
More than happy to do that, Councillor Formosa, and hopefully I'll be able to get my bike out on the day as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if we just send out a letter to all the principals of all the schools in our municipality, I think it's a great way for us to reach out and tell them that we definitely need to make our move. So that's great. Thank you so much. Secondly, you know, I'm sick of saying it, and I'm sure you're all sick of hearing it. 32 Stud Road rubbish that's being left, I feel like, every second of the day. The moment we collect it, it's there's a new pile there again. And I don't know what else we can possibly do, but could the relevant officer please try and come up with a solution to prevent this from happening, because I know myself and my family, we're sick of seeing it, and I'm sure that all the residents and visitors that come along Stud Road on a daily basis are also sick of seeing it.
Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And Councillor, I absolutely share your frustration. This particular site has an unfortunate history in terms of non-compliance. Leave the matter again with me. We'll see what we can do to try and get some traction. I'll have my officers out there again tomorrow and hopefully be able to report something back to you before the end of the week. I'll also liaise with some of my colleagues in council to see what else can be done. But yes, it is a frustrating matter, and I'll share that frustration with you. But I will get back to you before the end of the week. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Formosa.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. And actually, while I have your attention, I had a resident call me earlier this evening regarding some illegal parking issues that he's having in front of his house, and not only within the vicinity of his house, but also cars that are blocking his driveway. And he did call customer service today. He said he was put on hold for about 15 minutes. Finally got through, and then spoke to one of the community service officers and asked specifically for a parking officer to come and attend. He fortunately has a lot of time on his hands, so he waited the entire day for a parking officer to attend, and unfortunately no one did attend. The driver did eventually leave the site. But and to be fair, I've had a few parking situations myself that I've been flagging most recently, and nothing seems to be being done. So I'm just wondering, do we have a shortage of parking officers, or is there a more efficient way that we can get parking officers out to particular sites quicker, please, Mr. Bosman?
Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Mayor, through yourself, Councillor, I wouldn't say that it's a shortage of parking officers. Clearly, it's a very large municipality that we have, and when a request comes in for an officer to attend, we will attend as best as we can with the resources that we have in the area at any given time. obviously there are times when that will be more easily done than in other cases where there might not be somebody nearby. What I'm happy to do in this case and in all cases, if you give me the details of the particular gentleman, the complainant, we'll arrange to make contact with the complainant and see what we can do to set up some increased patrols or visits to the area. So if in the course of the next day, Councillor, if you could send me those details, I will follow up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Formosa.
Thanks, Mr. Bosman. Appreciate that, and I'm sure the resident will. So I'll send you an email with all of those details later this evening. Another couple of issues, once again related to rubbish. I know it's tiring, and it's extremely tiring having to see the amount of rubbish that our municipality is covered in. In particular, I've noticed on Irving Road in Dandenong North, there's the East Link freeway concrete slabs that are along there, and for some reason between Oakwood Drive and Barbara Avenue, there is so much rubbish along that road right up next to the East Link barriers. So I'm not sure if that's Eastlink's responsibility or our responsibility, but I drove past there just recently. I found tyres, I found rubbish that's been collecting there for I don't know how long, but this particular area is just ridiculous how much rubbish there is there. So if the relevant officer could please let me know who the authority is in this particular space, and if we could address that as soon as possible, please.
Mr. Keasley.
Thank you, Councillor. If the land is owned and operated by Eastlink or the Department of Transport, then it is their obligation to clean it. We have had similar issues with Princess Highway, the Dandenong Bypass, with Department of Transport and also some elements of Eastlink. So what we can do is follow up with necessary correspondence to bring that back to their attention. If, however, the roads, as you refer to those others, are within local streets, then that is would be our jurisdiction with regards to looking at who is the offending person with regards to whether it's on private property or council property. So we'll certainly undertake some inspections and also gear up some letters to those other agencies to ensure that they are cleaning their roads.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Formosa.
Thanks, Mr. Keasley. Yeah, I have flagged it on several occasions, and nothing's really been done. So I was wondering if it probably wasn't ours, if that's the case. So I'd really urge council to assist me with this matter, because it's I don't know what it is, but I just think the rubbish tends to just blow into that direction, and then it gets stuck there. So there's a lot of rubbish. And speaking of rubbish, Clean Up Australia Day is March 6th, which is this Sunday, and I am joining my forces with my family once again. We did the same last year, but this year in particular, I'll be cleaning the entire Noble Park North Ward, so all of the parks and reserves. There's 26 of them. I did about half last year, but this year I'd really encourage for all community members within Noble Park North Ward to assist me and my family in cleaning some of this rubbish. And in particular, there's a science experiment that's happening. The CSIRO is requesting that we count the amount of masks that we find. So my kids were very excited about that aspect of Clean Up Australia Day. So if anybody within Noble Park North Ward would like to join me and my family on Sunday, March 6th, please join my group on Clean Up Australia Day. There's an event there for Clean Up Noble Park North Ward. So that would be greatly appreciated, and a really good initiative to keep our municipality clean. Thanks. I think that's all from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Formosa. Councillor Garrard.
Councillor Foster first, Mayor.
Okay, we can go to Deputy Mayor Foster then.
Thanks, Mayor. So I guess firstly, I just want to report on a couple of events that I've been to. I want to thank a couple of our departments, council departments, the community development, sport and recreation team, and the business engineering and major projects teams for facilitating a meeting with Parkfield Cricket Club a couple of weeks ago with myself, just to perhaps look at certain concerns in terms of not just the master plan, but also some ideas that the president at the Parkfield Cricket Club has, and trying to, I guess, encourage young people to take up sport, kind of along the lines of Councillor Formoso's suggestion earlier as well. I also attended the Parkfield Cricket Club's 50th anniversary just Saturday just gone, and it was a great event to commemorate just the hard work that the cricket club has done over the years, and great opportunity for past and present players to come together. So I guess in relation, my next question, which is without notice, Mayor, is in relation to sport, in particular junior sport. I understand that many of our local sporting codes are struggling with regards to recruiting juniors. Young people have disengaged in sport over the last 2 years due to COVID, and the research shows that engaging in organised sport for young people supports not only their physical health but also their mental health and social connections. So my question, Mayor, to the relevant officer is, how is Council looking at increasing junior participation in sport, particularly organised sport, given our Make Your Move campaign and strategy? And now that we've come out of restrictions and lockdowns, what strategies do we have in place to work with local community groups, multicultural groups, schools and sporting clubs to get more of our young people playing sport? Thank you.
Mr. Fiddler.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. We do have in our sport and recreation team liaison officers that work with all of our clubs. We're in constant contact with the clubs, particularly around any allocations, so seasonal allocations, constantly getting feedback about the issues that they may be facing. We're quite proactive at the moment in promoting particularly junior sport for young women and girls, and also looking at facilities to the way that we can incorporate appropriate facilities for young women as well. I'm happy to take the question on notice because it is quite detailed in what we do, and provide a more detailed response on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. I also attended, as did Councillor Formoso and a number of our councillors here tonight, attended the New Beginnings Community Welcome Celebration for our new Afghan residents. And as Councillor Formoso said, it was just an amazing event and a really great one to start the year off, and to, I guess, to welcome our new arrivals, but also to see how appreciative and how much they want to give back to the community. And I just give them a lot of credit and just admiration for what they've been through and what they're offering our community and contributing to our community. My next question, Mayor, is in relation to Heatherton Road, between Ian Street right up to Chandler Road in Noble Park. There seems to be a great deal of patchwork that has been done on the road there, in sections of Heatherton Road, and driving over it, you really notice the numerous bumps. It's quite bumpy. It's probably one of the most bumpiest roads that I've driven on lately. So I was hoping that the relevant officer could look at this and follow up with the relevant road authority. I understand that this is probably a Vic Roads responsibility, but if this could be followed up, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Kisley.
Thank you, Councillor. And yes, I would also agree that it is a bit like a road race or a country road race in terms of the nature of the surface. We have had numerous complaints all the way along Heatherton Road, and unfortunately it's one of these issues that it is under the control of the Department of Transport, or what was known as Vic Roads. We have over the number of years submitted letters on behalf of council and all residents in order to push that, and one of the responses we get is that they need funding allocated, and there are other projects in priority ahead of ours. We will again make contact with the Department of Transport or their Vic Roads branch in order to continue. And we may, I think, elevate that perhaps, depending on the nature of their response, we may then elevate that from with regards to a letter from our mayor to the local member or local members that go along the entire length of that road, and there probably are 2 or 3 of them, because I think, it's getting worse and worse, and the patching is a very temporary way of dealing with it, and we actually would prefer it to be dealt with some substance rather than just bits and pieces approach. So we do understand the concerns of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Deputy Mayor Foster.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Keasley. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to comment, as Councillor Formoso and Councillor Foster have, on the New Beginning celebration for the local Afghan community. It was a wonderful event. It was tremendous to see the warmth the Dandenong community have and showed towards the Afghan community, and the reciprocal gratitude that the Afghan community hold for the Dandenong community. It was a wonderful event, and it was really well patronised. I'd also like to acknowledge the great hardship the Ukrainian community in the city of Greater Dandenong are experiencing at this very difficult time. And my thoughts are with those who are, of course, deeply concerned about the safety of their loved ones in Ukraine, and to those suffering through the unprecedented floods in Queensland and northern New South Wales. We live in challenging times. Mr. Mayor, my first question is the Greater Dandenong Sustainability Strategy 2016 to 2030 commits the council to annual public reports on the progress of that strategy, but one has not been put on the website since 2019. Similarly, the Greater Dandenong Climate Emergency Strategy 2020-2030 commits the council to an annual public progress report. However, no report has been made publicly since available yet in the 18-month that strategy has existed. For both of these strategies, when will the missing annual reports be publicly made available?
Mr. Bosman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Garrett, the annual report relating to the Greater Dandenong Sustainability Strategy 2016 to 03 will be encompassed in the strategy's 5-year review, which will be tabled at a council meeting in May. The annual report pertaining to the climate emergency strategy will be tabled at that same meeting. So in both cases, there will be a publicly available document following the war from the tabling at the council meeting in May. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a follow-up question. So from that point on, can we expect annual reports, particularly from the sustainability strategy?
That will be our endeavour, Councillor Garrett. It will be our endeavour to do so. These are, as you will probably fully appreciate, very time-consuming and resource-intensive, but it is our endeavour to have them put out as an annual review. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Garrett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bosman. It's really important that the outcomes are communicated to the community. Next question, Mr. Mayor, is when will the Greater Dandenong Federal Election Advocacy Issues document for the upcoming federal election be made available?
Ms. Bragg.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, councillors have been presented with a draft document, which is now being reviewed and finalised this week. I anticipate the final version of that will be available on council's website by the end of the week.
Thank you, Ms. Bragg. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question is, I understand the CEOs of Frankston and Mornington Peninsula have been inviting all of the candidates for the federal electorates of Dunkley and Flinders, respectively, to meet with their councils to discuss their municipalities' priorities for the federal election. Will this be occurring for the electorates that are within the City of Greater Dandenong, and if so, when?
Ms. Bragg.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, the advocacy document will be mailed out to all federal election candidates along with a letter from the Mayor inviting them to meet with us should they wish to do so. Some candidates have already taken steps to organise meetings with the Mayor and CEO, which is both appreciated and encouraged. The advocacy document will be complemented by a comprehensive list of the issues on Council's website, along with associated links to other relevant documents and materials. A postcard is also being produced with a QR code that will take people straight to the advocacy content on our website, which will be distributed far and wide as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question is, what is the council's view of the appropriateness of putting a cemetery in a flood zone and an ecologically important area within Dandenong?
Mr. Benny.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the council hasn't formed a view in relation to that proposal at this point in time, so it would be inappropriate, I guess, to talk in any great detail about a matter that the council may yet be called upon to take a formal position on. However, there are a number of issues that councillors and council has become aware of that does cause the council concern at this point in time. The first is that council may not yet be required to take a formal position in relation to planning in the matter. As we understand it, this matter may be referred to or sought to be referred to a development facilitation panel. And if that was the case, council would not be the responsible authority and therefore not the decision maker in that particular matter. Council's first position that is expressed in a preliminary way is that this matter ought not proceed to a development facilitation panel. It ought to be submitted to council for consideration like any other planning application, where it can be objectively assessed by council's officers, where the community and the community can be engaged, third-party appeal rights upheld, and where council can be the decision maker. The other concern that has been expressed, and I expect conveyed back to the proponent, is that based on a very preliminary analysis of the application, that council carries hydrological, ecological, social concerns, including the potential alienation of valuable open space in that particular area. And all of those things are matters that are currently occupying council's mind. Council has recently written to the Ministers for Planning and separately the Minister for Water, expressing concerns along the lines that I have just conveyed, and we seek to engage further with the relevant ministers and the proponent to address those particular matters. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Benny. That's very pleasing to hear. Final question without notice. At the last meeting, in answer to a public question, it was stated that a ministerial Hemming Street Precinct Community Forum and workshop would be held on the 17th of March this year regarding the welfare and community issues in the Hemming Street precinct. Is this just for welfare agencies and not-for-profits, or will ordinary Greater Dandenong residents be invited to this forum?
Mr. Fiddler.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. The forum is inviting the stakeholders, including residents who participated in the extensive Hemming Street Action Plan consultation, and those who expressed interest in being involved in future forums and who gave us their contact details and permission to contact them into the future. So they're the ones, there are many residents and a whole range of groups that are participating, but there are also capacity limits for this forum. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all for me.
Thank you. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. Just would like to mention about on the mid of February, Mayor Mamiti already mentioned about the meeting between Monash Health Director and his team, and also Mr. Rob Koch, he's in charge of vaccination in Monash Health. In that meeting, he mentioned about vaccination in our city, and he congratulated the Cambodian community about the highest rate of vaccination in our city compared to other municipalities, the highest as well, and also compare to nationally always the highest as well. And his statement is also emailed to Mr. Yuhon Chi and Sophie Tan. He congratulated our community about this achievement, and he said this word, he said Cambodian Australians living in the city of Greater Dandenong can now validly claim they are among the most vaccinated community in the world if compared to each ethnic community in each country. But thank you for our community, especially SK Media, Community Association, Councillor Sophie Tan and myself try to put a lot of work and effort to promote vaccination. And also on that Thursday, I invite Mayor Jim Mameti came along as well to present the money of $5,715 to Monash Health, especially for Monash Children Emergency Department, on behalf of Cambodian community. Actually, Cambodian community very kind by donate on a regular basis. Every couple of weeks, we raise about at least $5,000 or $6,000 for Monash Children Hospital. And thank you for my community. And on the Tuesday, the 15th of February, regarding to vaccination, again, SPS trying to invite me on the regular basis to inform all Cambodian community around Australia in regarding to vaccination, different type of vaccination, the booster and treatment and so on and so on. And not just that myself, on the weekly basis, I always provide health seminar, vaccination, any update, any restriction that occur in our state and so on and so on. On the Thursday, the 17th of February, Mayor Jim Mameti and myself and MP Hieng Tek, we attend Sabah dinner just regarding to the future of Melbourne, Springvale Central, especially Mayor Jim Mameti and myself and MP Hieng Tek by give them some gave them some sort of vision for the future of our central ward. On the Sunday, the 20th of February, Rhonda, Councillor Rhonda Garrett and also Lana mentioned about a very great celebration for our newcomer, especially Afghan people. On Tuesday, the 22nd, we have a meeting with two business owners, with also that business owner invited Jim Mameti as a mayor as well, because the two business owners have some issue regarding to Dandenong ward and also to my ward. Therefore, one of business owner from Dandenong ward and another one from Springvale ward. That's a great outcome. The two of them, they have some issue. We sort of try to help them as much as we can. And today or this afternoon, I had another discussion with Attila Buden and also Sarah regarding to Songkran New Year. I just like to thank you to Mr. Martin Fiedler that gave us a lot of encouragement and also supporting us all the time regarding to Songkran New Year for our city, just to raise awareness of our multicultural community. And also in that meeting this afternoon seemed to be a very good outcome. Thank you so much again for Mr. Buden and also Sarah Hill. And my first question is for this tonight, we just want to find out about the kids that come gathering in our multi-level car park and also mainly hooning. Is that we have the right to tell them or to inform them to not to do that as a councillor or as a cleaner of Springvale Central ward, because the cleaner very keen to work together with me just to discourage them from doing that. Is that any legal implication if we telling them or we take a video of their car or while they're holding or their car registration? Would you mind to give me some guideline in that sort of issue?
Mr. Kisley.
Thank you, Councillor. I would have some caution with regards to taking photographs of private people with regards to their activities of hooning. The best thing to do is to report it directly on 000 to the police or to contact the Springvale Police Station. That they are the best and the only legal people that can actually deal and enforce matters related to hooning. None of our officers have the authority to act without on anything to do with that particular matter. and I would strongly suggest that if there is a particular hooning, that you can certainly make us aware of it, and then we can also advise the local police as well. The government have just introduced a particular committee related to hooning, and we hope to be able to bring more information to council in the coming weeks once we are able to identify the nature. So I think the state government have acknowledged the issues raised across Melbourne by introducing this particular committee, this particular group. We hope to understand what work it will do in the coming months. But with regards to any self-enforcement, I would encourage you just to contact the police, and certainly taking photos may exacerbate the situation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Keasley, Councillor Lim.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The second question is regarding to the seat in our activity center along Buckingham Avenue. That's what my thinking is. Can we provide more seats by putting more seats along Buckingham Avenue? Because look like there is a lack of seats in that street. The reason because of a lot of people love to come to buy some food, to buy some bubble tea or eat outdoor. For restaurant, not so bad. And for bubble tea shop, they lack of seat. Can we provide some more seat, like a public seat to people? Because by 7 o'clock, we still a lot of young people, young children, or young teenagers come along to Springvale to enjoy getting together, meet each other like a rendezvous place. But they tend to stand there, drink their bubble tea because they don't have enough seats for them. If we can afford to, put some seat along there rather than waiting for the CIP bid, would it be possible for our council to do that?
Mr. Keasley.
Thank you, Council. I'll have my team actually have a look at that and do an assessment as to whether we can, where we would locate them and how many, and then based on that, what the cost could be, whether or not we have funding this financial year or whether we would have to wait to the program coming in next financial year. So we'll do the assessment first and we'll come back and have a discussion with you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Lim.
Yep, thank you. To me, regarding to the seat, because we have not many seats, therefore probably you receive email today that I forward email from Alex regarding to the people that play the music or basketing, whatever, they use the seat. Therefore, we went from other people from using those seats as well. Therefore, why I request that point. My next question is probably to Mr. Bosman regarding to loading zone, private loading zone. Any update regarding to private loading zone that I would like our council to monitor the private loading zone?
Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councillor Lim, as you know, in terms of the conversations we've had, enforcing or any form of supervision, any form of enforcement in the private car parks cannot be undertaken by my parking management officers. What I said that we can possibly look at is that where there are private car parks, whether there would then be an arrangement, the possibility of an arrangement made between the property owner, where those are publicly accessible, and that the council could take over by arrangement with that owner the enforcement of parking provisions with them. But it require a direct conversation between the property owner of that private car park and council and its property and enforcement units. So we can continue to progress that if you still wish to, and I will then touch base with you in the next couple of days to get the contact details, but it can only be done with the express undertaking, at best with the express undertaking between a private property owner and council. I will follow that up with you in the course of the next couple of days and see how far we can take it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. My last question is just regarding to multi-level car park again. When is going to happen regarding to renovation of multi-level car park? When is going to happen? Thanks.
Mr. Keasley.
Thank you, councillor. I'll take that one on notice and follow up with my design and construction team and give you the latest advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kisley. Councillor Lim.
Yeah, thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question this meeting. It's been brought to my attention a number of times last year that there's long-standing issues with disruptive levels of noise around what's known now as the Springvale Mega Centre, but formerly known as Alson Plaza, and along the associated area of Princess Highway, Mayor, and the noise is contributing to the disruption of peace and quiet for residents located near there. Now, I think I've received enough information now to show that this isn't just a one-off or just a few residents complaining sort of without cause, but it's an ongoing thing. The Springvale Mega Centre seems to be an appealing place for car meetups. Got a 24-hour McDonald's and a large empty car park. The noise seems to be, from the information I've got from multiple residents, the noise is Thursday and Friday nights in particular, and can start sort of, around about 8 p.m. and sometimes go through to 3 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m., or just whenever, the particular car meetups decide to break up. So, I can certainly empathise with these residents. They're saying that their mental health is being disrupted, their sleep patterns. Some of them have to work the next day, and they're just it's that constant noise that they never expected, and it's just come along. It's consistent, and it's happening every week, as I understand. Now, I acknowledge that Victoria Police and the Environment Protection Authority are the main agencies responsible for these issues. So council is not primarily responsible for it. But as their local representative, they've contacted myself. I think that council is one of the best connectors in some ways of these agencies, and I think we can do more. Last year, the mayor at the time, Angela Long, sent letters to, I think it was police and MPs to organise a meeting. My understanding is there wasn't any response to it. One resident tells me that he's contacted police multiple times, but police say that they're too busy. So it's an issue that is not easy to resolve, but I think for the residents' sake, for their own what we call on council, their own peace of mind or a peaceful amenity of living, that we should do more. So a question without notice to the Director of Planning is that particularly if we can really, on this one, really creatively think of any and all avenues how we can escalate this, make it visible. And we've tried to bring the parties together to resolve it, but really open to all advice. How exactly how it's resolved. So, like, I've been on council quite a while, but I'm not sure how like the EPA or how responsive the EPA are as far as like noise complaints. Like, if a group of residents have an ongoing noise complaint, like what exactly do they do? Do they ring up the EPA? Do they send an email? Like, how responsive is the EPA, etc. So if all this sort of information could be brought together, and I'd ask that council comes up with a multi-point sort of advocacy action plan on it, because I just think this is going to continue, and it's just the lives of the residents around this area will just be continually disrupted. That I've seen on, I think Councillor Dark showed me a event on Facebook that had all the information there, that they're organising car events at Springvale Mega Centre, so it's pretty clear what's happening. But we just need, the people that can make a difference to be engaged with it and, be willing to do something about it. So I'd appreciate if the director could absolutely think all different ways that we could make this visible and come up with some sort of plan. My question to the director.
Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, this matter is well known to me and to my officers, and it is a multi-agency approach. The Vic Police have a specific operation that deals with hooning in the southeast, and this particular site is very much on the radar of Vic Police as they track these social media sites, these meets, etc. There are ongoing collaborations between ourselves, especially my manager in planning compliance, our local laws people, and Vic Police in this regard. And it is a problem that has gone on, unfortunately, for too long. I'm not too sure what the answer is. Vic Police themselves have dedicated a huge amount of resources to it, particularly over weekends. And Councillor, you might recall that over a number of times there were the electronic, what they call the VMS boards that were placed outside the site, advising the community that there was a police operation, in fact, in action in the area, and that police operation is the one that's dedicated to trying to bring hooning to book. Well, I'll take that message back. We will continue to engage with Vic Police, with the owners of the property, and we'll do what we can, thinking outside of the box. I can assure you that this matter has already stretched our minds and stretched our ingenuity, and unfortunately, it keeps coming back onto the coming back on site, that we have this hoon behavior. It'll stop for a while and then it'll reoccur again. And I think that there are a number of sites around the southeast where these groups of hoon drivers move around, move between, in a cat and mouse game with Vic Police. I hear what you say. I will continue to engage, myself and my officers continue to engage with the other agencies, and in particular Vic Police, and hopefully we'll be able to get some relief from it in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Just supplementary to that. So just if you could get or bring back some understanding, or if the police could explain that, what exactly do they do if, because I don't understand what, if these meetings are happening every week on a regular basis, then is it because the police don't have enough powers to break up this hoon activity, that it's too difficult, that there's too much paperwork, that they need to like actually be there when there's a large amount of noise. If I could get, and I'm sure other councillors would be interested in respect to hoon activity in general, on how like the police actually try to carry out their enforcement activity. Because like I still can't get the disconnect in that, the police are attempting to shut down hoon activity on one hand, yet on the other hand we've got these things that they're constantly going on, right? So I just need like more information on like what are the police actually doing? Like, do they have problems with actually enforcing the hooning laws, etc.? And I was also very interested in what Mr. Kearsley said earlier in the meeting regarding the new hooning task force. So if there's any information on that, I'd appreciate that as early as possible.
Certainly, Councillor. I think we'll come back to you then with a briefing as to what is happening. I can certainly assure you that Vic Police's activities are not guided by whether or not they're trying to avoid paperwork. They are very much committed to this issue of hooning in the southeast and trying to bring that under control. I will come back to you and the other councillors with a briefing one evening as to exactly what all of this entails.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I just want to report some of the events I attended to last 2 weeks. On the 14th of Feb, I attended the briefing just regarding to the Railway Parade Shopping Centre. So it's going to be a new draft concept plan and a community consultation along this area. So that will be, very interesting and a new, especially we've got the new car park at the Yarraman station as well from the state government. On the 17th of Feb, I attended the Meal Reserve Precinct Advisory Group, which we discussed about the Dandenong Wellbeing Centre, about the community consultation outcomes, about the schematic design presentation and a cost plan. So it's great to see our new Dandenong Wellbeing centres coming up to life soon. Will be a great big major project in Greater Dandenong. I only got one question for tonight, just regarding to a query from a resident regarding to trucks and the truck trailers, which is parking for up more than 48 hours. So this is more on the Bridge Road of Pops Road in Keysborough. So could the relevant officer, could you please investigate if you can, put up like a parking a limit sign for this area, because currently like, it's a lot of truck using this area to park as a truck parking area.
Mr. Bosman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, there are two issues involved here. One is whether they are parking legally or not. It's not illegal for a truck to park and to park for 24 or 48 hours. Just as much as any other vehicle to park along the roadside within the road regulations. So the first thing to do would be to check out whether these trucks are actually parking legally, whether they are oversized trucks or within the length and weight that is permitted. If they are, then obviously parking enforcement is not an option. The other thing that I will arrange in discussion with my colleague, Mr. Kearsley, is whether or not there are traffic safety issues in that particular stretch of road, and I'll get the details from you. If there are traffic safety issues, traffic engineering and traffic safety issues, we can then look at putting in the appropriate signage to restrict parking, but provided that going back to my earlier part of the answer, provided that they are parking trucks that are not oversized and that they are parking them within a safe environment. As much as people might not like it, trucks may park along the curb as any other vehicle could. But if you give me those details, we'll check out to see whether they are parking legally and whether the road conditions are safe.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Tan.
Yeah, I will send it through. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Just following up question, just regarding, again with the dump rubbish. I know that you know, a lot of people clearing their property at the moment. So we've got some issue, not, you know, actually people dump their rubbish on the nature street, but it's actually inside their property. So a few on Corrigan Road, some in Springvale, and some in Noble Park. I know it's a matter of the local law issue, but could the relevant officer, could you please advise, so what's the process, how long does it take to actually resolve this dump issue in the private property?
Mr. Bosman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Tan, that would be a matter for our local laws officers to investigate, and we can actually, if you give me the addresses, we can actually investigate those quite early. There are a number of issues involved here, depending on the nature of, let's call it the dumping that's happening on the private property. Is it just a case that it's unsightly? Is it a case that it is a public health risk? Is it a case that it is in fact a danger to the residents, or a danger to the people next door? If, for example, it's imposing on the neighbouring property. So each case will have to be looked at in terms of its own individual circumstances. But the first port of call is normally to let me know the address, and we would have it inspected by one of our local laws officers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, I will send through the information. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Lastly, just regarding to a bus shelter, if someone damaged the bus shelter, is that should we report that to the Department of Transport, or is that council responsibility to fix it?
Mr. Kearsley.
Thank you, Councillor. That depends on who owns the bus shelter. The best thing to do would be to forward the details to myself or to Lucas Sikiotis, and we will then be able to determine who is best placed to respond to that particular issue. There are a number of ones that are ours, and there are a number of ones that are actually owned by the Department of Transport.
Sure, I'll send it through.
Thank you, Councillor Tan.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Councillor Trong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the last Wednesday evening, I attended a citizenship ceremony with our mayor at the Springvale Town Hall. And I want to remind all the people that Sam Vec and myself organize the cleanup of holiday every year. And I participated to this event at around, I think, about 33, 34 years. But every year we organize the people from 80 to 100 people. And this year, because they asked us to divide into 20 people in a group. And therefore, we maybe have 4 or 5 groups. Maybe one group we work with Richard Lim group as well. I highlight, we have a coffee time from 9:30 to 10:30. If any councillor have a time to visit us, then come to have a coffee with the Vietnamese people. And at the afternoon, I think May evening, 2 or 3 o'clock, we have the barbecue to the end of the event. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trong. Councillor Long.
I thought you forgot me, mate.
They've forgotten you on the list, actually, but I didn't forget you.
These are some of the events that I've attended since my last formal meeting. The 17th of February, I attended the Cultural Heritage meeting online. Later that afternoon, I attended the MPAG meeting online. 18th of February, I attended the soccer match between Melbourne Knights and Dandenong City. Melbourne won 5-0. 19th of February, I attended the basketball game between Southside Flyers and Adelaide Lightning. Adelaide won 85-72. On the 20th of February, I attended a function in Harmony Square for the Afghan community. I have one question tonight. There is a damaged car parked in Boyd Street near the corner of Heatherton Road, North Dandenong. It has a yellow sticker on it and has been there for about 3 weeks. When will it be removed?
Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. If it's 3 weeks, councillor, it probably has about 1 week's grace still to go. But I will follow up and see what the date for removal is and get back to you on that.
Thank you, Mr.
Another thing was, I thought it was 14 days they had to remove the car.
I will have to check the specific details on what has been posted on the windscreen, councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Thank you, Councillor Long. Some of the events that I attended the Multicultural Business Ministerial Meeting. I also attended the launch, the Back Your Neighbour campaign launch with Councillor Garrard, where 37 other councillors advocate for people seeking asylum and refugees. And we might be getting more refugees with the Ukrainian war happening at the moment. I heard the Prime Minister and the Premier said that they're welcome in Victoria. So we're a welcome zone in Greater Dandenong, a refugee welcome zone. I also attended, as Councillor Lim said, a meeting with Saba and also MP Mr. Hing-Ming Tak. Had a discussion about the Lunar New Year festival that they hold annually. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to go ahead this year. They're continuing to work with traders and the community to actually bring a bigger and better event in 2023. I also had a meeting with some ladies who do some good work around Victoria who are actually coming to Dandenong. They're actually having an office in Thomas Street. They're called Sister Works. So I'm looking forward to working with them once they establish themselves in Greater Dandenong. I also, as a couple of other councillors mentioned, went to watch Dandenong City versus Melbourne Knights. It was the season opener. Unfortunately, it didn't go too well for Dandenong City, but hopefully they'll rebound and win some games soon. Also, I attended with many of my colleagues the New Beginnings, a community welcome celebration where more than 1,000 people turned up to Harmony Square, probably the biggest function or festival we've had in 2022. It's great to see so many people coming out. There was a lot of community providers there to assist our new residents into our city, and I look forward to celebrating more of these events in the coming months. I also attended the 2022 CGD Take a Swing for Charity Golf Day, which the funds raised were going to Wellsprings for Women, and they normally raise up to between 40 and 50,000 a year. They've been going for the last 13 years, and all the money raised goes to local charities within Greater Dandenong. But also, for the first time ever, there was a hole-in-one, and if you can hit a hole-in-one, you win a car. So somebody actually hit a hole-in-one, and they have actually won a car in the first time ever in the city of Greater Dandenong. Take a Swing for Charity Golf Day, which I think the presentation is going to be sometime this week. So it was, I think everybody had a fantastic day. Cars given away, money raised, so great for the community. Also that evening, as Councillor Trong said, we officiated another citizenship ceremony. Love them. It's great to see so many happy faces. And one gentleman said he was a refugee for the last 10 years and now he was an Australian citizen. So really made my night. Going back to the schools now, we're visiting primary schools. I was at the Chandler Park Primary School Assembly to present school leadership badges. Beautiful school, fantastic kids, and it was great to see those kids as well. Couple of events mentioned, actually wasn't mentioned yet. The Springvale Community Hub celebrations on the 5th of March. The event starts at 4 p.m. It's going to be an opening celebration. I think we haven't had one there. I think we've had a few stops and starts, a few little events there, but this one's going to be the big one on the 5th of March. Hopefully we'll see thousands of people there. I look forward to seeing the community out there as well to celebrate with us. As mentioned, Clean Up Australia Day, 6th of March. I can tell you, we've mentioned a few events happening. I can tell you that there's a big event to Clean Up Australia Day at Tatterson Park. SEMVAC, the Cambodian Association, the Sri Lankan community, the Albanian community, Lana in her ward, and also Councillor Lim has his group as well. So this is just the ones that I've been invited to, and there's probably many more. So I think we're in good hands in Greater Dandenong. There's many of our residents that are going out on the 6th of March to clean up Australia, and it's great to see our community get involved. So looking forward to trying to attend as many of those events as possible on Sunday, but it's going to be a big day, and I congratulate all our community for getting involved. Mr. Benny, questions taken on notice at the previous meeting?
Mayor, any questions taken on notice at the last meeting will be listed in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Item 7, urgent business. If there's no urgent business, councillors, I declare the meeting closed at 8:30 p.m. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.